Hi, this is Brian with redband.com, and this is the review of the Sony HD Bloggie. This is the MHS-CM5 model. They released a couple of these Bloggie branded camcorders at CES 2010 this year, and the main difference is how they look. This is more of a gun kind of model, where the other one's more of like a typical flip kind of style. There's no really huge difference between the two Bloggies hardware-wise. They both do about the same quality of video and everything. The main difference I went with this one is because I wanted the 5 times optical zoom, which this model has and the other one doesn't. The other one only has digital zoom. And it also has this, the other model also has a lens that goes like this. And that just seems to me like, I don't want that. It just seems like it would get loose or something. I don't know. So I went with this model, and I've been using it for about a week. And if you've been following my reviews at all, you know that I am always reviewing pocket cameras, pocket video cameras, cameras that you could put in your pocket and pull out, film something, put it back. Now this one isn't the most slimmest. This is the Kodak Z8, by the way. It's not the most slimmest model. It's about the same width, but the main differences between the two is the Kodak has an audio input. While that sounds great on paper, they didn't really execute it well, in my opinion. You can't put headphones on and listen. Like if you have an external microphone hooked up, you can't put headphones on and hear how it sounds. So you might be overblowing the microphone, and you won't know until you play back the video. And I thought that was a huge overlook. If you're going to put something as cool as a external microphone on this camera, you should at least be able to hear it, you know. So other than that, the Kodak also had a few other buggy software problems that some of the problems Kodak has worked out. But overall, the 1080p just doesn't look that great. The image stabilization freaks out. It's got a weird jello look where it just the whole video kind of looks like that. There's a red recording light that I had to cover up with tape so I can be a little bit more incognito when I'm filming. I've been using this a lot. There's a couple other bugs that I don't know. Overall, I think this is a great attempt with Kodak, but it just seems like they kind of gave up on trying to fix some of its issues. Now, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about this Sony Bloggie camera. Now, I've been using it for a week. It has an LCD screen that pops out, so you can flip it around, record yourself. When you open it up, it automatically turns on the camera. It's got a play button on the inside. It's got a record button for some reason. It has 2 record buttons. I'm not really quite sure why they do that. There's probably a reason. I just never read the instructions. And there's a menu. The microphone is on top of the LCD screen, that little hole right there, which makes it kind of interesting because if you wanted to get crafty, if you're interviewing something, you could point the microphone towards the person, or you can point it towards the, if I'm asking a question. I found the mono mic, by the way, not stereo. I found the mono mic actually to be better than the Kodak. I thought the mic actually did pretty well for mono. Outside, I didn't really get too much wind noise or anything like that. It's a pretty good mic. Why is it not stereo though? I have no idea, especially since when some of the other Sony's cameras, digital cameras that have movie modes on them, they have stereo mics on some of them. So why couldn't they put a stereo mic on the camcorder? You would think that would make more sense than putting a stereo mic on a digital camera. Whatever. So there's a zoom rocker right here. You push it down to zoom in, push it up to zoom out. It has a 5 times optical zoom. You could also turn on a digital zoom, which does an okay for digital zoom. I'm not a huge fan of the digital zoom. It's also kind of weird when it gets into the digital zoom mode. It goes from a smooth zoom to kind of a very slow zoom, almost to tell you like, hey, you're in digital zoom mode, just so you know. Which is fine, I guess, because I don't like the digital zoom. This also takes 5 megapixel camera photos, and it's kind of cool. You hold down this button, and it does the, where it's trying to focus in on something, and then if you had the beep turned on, it would beep when it's focused, and then you push it again, and it takes a photo. I have turned off the beep sound because I hate when you're just going through a menu, it's like beep, 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 or when you're hitting record, beep. I just, who needs that? I don't need that. So anyways, there's a joystick right down here to navigate menus and stuff like that. The menus are pretty decent. You could, choose your, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, you can choose your resolutions for photos, you can choose your resolutions for videos. And it's good to note that this does take VGA low quality videos at 30 frames per second, 720p at 30 frames per second. And those two formats, the image stabilization you can use. You can turn on the image, the steady shot is what Sony calls it. So if your hand shakes, it makes up for it and tries to smooth it out. Now that those modes are not available on the 720p 60 frames a second, which is 720, but it doubles the frame count. So if you're doing something like action sports or anything with fast motion, it will look a lot better. It's also cool to use that mode when you want to slow down video. It looks really cool. So like if you're filming somebody running, it's really cool because you can get a really smooth slowdown when you're doing post video editing. This also has a 1080 30 frames per second, and the 60 frames per second 720 and the 1080 30 frames per second does not allow the steady shot, which I found kind of a bummer. The Kodak has this image stabilization on I believe all its modes. Not the best, but it has it. But that's probably why Sony decided not to do it. It's probably, I think, too much math for the processor in these little cameras to handle. That's why the Kodak probably freaks out on it, and this doesn't. They decided just to take it off. Now, filming, it does, it is a small camera. It's in your hand, so if you're walking around, it is going to look like you're holding a small camera. So I found my preferred method of, if I'm walking around, stuff like that, being the 720 30 frames per second to use the steady shot feature. But most of the time I am filming in 1080 30p because it looks fantastic. It has a great 1080, which is nice. It's smooth, the optical zoom looks great, the focusing is really good when you have lighting. I've noticed under tests, if the lighting is low light, the focus has a kind of a hard time focusing. It's a little slower to focus. And that brings me to one of my requested features in the future. I really hope Sony puts in the future a manual, like if I could turn off the automatic focus, and it doesn't allow you to do that. It would be nice for that, because being able to push a button and turn, like how they would do it would be kind of weird, but it would be nice to be able to turn off the autofocus sometime. Especially if you're filming somebody like a play or a concert and somebody walks in front of you, usually that will make the focus freak out for a couple seconds and try to focus on that person walking in front of you and then unfocus what you're trying to film. That's why I like manual focus once in a while. This doesn't have manual focus, but of course this is just a cheap pocket camera, so that's why that feature is not available on this camera. I found the low light to be acceptable for its size. Low light for digital cameras and video cameras are never good unless you start spending a couple $1,000s. But it's very comparable to the Kodak. I thought the Kodak had a lot more static, more washed out video in general compared to the Sony. If you can look at my YouTube page, you'll see I've compared the video side by side. And the Kodak stands its ground, but it also, if you're comparing the two, you'll notice the Sony has really good colors, really rich colors, like bright greens, and everything looks great. The low light, you're getting into static. It's acceptable, I guess. If it's pitch black or very low light, you're not going to get much from this or the Kodak or any pocket cameras. The lens has a lens cap, which they give you a little string to attach to it. Not a fan of that. Would have liked to seen a hardware lens cap where you slide it to open and shut. This just is when I'm filming. The microphone's always picking up this thing jiggling around. You hear it. It just, I don't know. I'm just not a fan of that. Not a big deal. There's a speaker on the side. The speaker is loud, so if you want to play back your videos, it's great. It comes with cables to hook up to your TV, so you can watch the video on your TV. I tried it on my 68-inch TV. It looked decent.